13.
Oh, no,
12. That's not far off.
very close.
You go to the state fair, like if you guess within 2 years, you don't win anything. So I was close enough. Yeah. So just a nice thought for us to think about. Like you all come together to play together, right? Or to sit and have kirtan and stuff like that, whatever. Play different things. Older kids play different games. But when we do that, we always want to do that with our friends. I mean, it's nice to make new friends too, right? You go to the park over here, maybe make some new friends once in a while. But we always want to be with our friends. So Srila Prabhupada helps us understand that actually Krishna is our very best friend, right? So who can tell me what are some of the qualities of a friend? Like you got a friend, what's it mean somebody's your friend?
Maybe he's nice.
They're nice to you, very important. Way in the back.
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy, wow, that's a big one. What's trustworthy mean?
Well, you can trust him with anything you feel like is worth trusting him. You won't like throw it out or.
That's great. Anybody have anything they can write something down on? I can tell we're gonna hear some good stuff here. Anybody have anything? Just real quick. These are some good answers. So, oh Lord, that's even better. Okay, but we have to write quick. That's the only secret. We'll get a marker. Okay, so we heard our friends are. Yeah. Okay, our friends are nice. Our friends are trustworthy.
They'll just pass it above these things.
Is there any way we can do that up here and then they can all, well, that's good enough because we didn't plan, so that's good. Trustworthy. Okay, good. You had your hand up.
Yeah, I really hope, your friend. Know them. Like,
Know
right,
them.
yeah.
Okay, maybe, so if I understand you, so they're people you can really know closely as opposed to like a stranger or something like that? Okay, so friends are people that you know closely. Okay, good. What are some other qualities or things you think about of a friend?
When I think of a friend, I think of a person who helps another person in need or their friend in need.
Nice, helps you when you're in need. My friend helps me when I'm in need. Okay, that's great. Anybody else? What's a friend? And you don't have to think of like some big, how God works, just like your friend in school or something like that. What are some of the, there you go. This purple here in the green.
Have fun with you.
Good. A friend is someone we have fun with. That's really important. We have fun with our friends. What else? What else about your friends? Okay.
A person you meet like to have fun and not to like just to come because you have to come, like to come because you want to come.
Ah, somebody like you really want to be with?
Yeah.
Okay, like hopefully you're feeling right now, right? Okay, somebody you want to be with, that's a really important one. You got a good list here. Anything else? Let me read what we got and then we'll see if there's some more. Okay, so a friend is someone who's nice to us and people we like. A friend is trustworthy. They know us closely. They help when we're in need. We have fun with them and we actually want to be with them. You kind of had a second one, I think, before, did you? Or you had two parts. Did we get it all? Or is there something else you wanted to add? No, you're good? Okay. Anybody else want to add to that list? Yes, okay. That was like a no, but, yes.
A person that makes you feel like a person that makes you matter to them.
Wow, that's really profound.
A person that, makes you feel like, wow, I'm not useless. I make someone happy. I make someone feel good.
Wow, that was like the whole book right there. That was great. So a person who makes us feel worthy, valuable, somebody who appreciates us. Okay, great. Makes feel we are worthy. Why don't you go ahead and have value, that we have value. Yeah. Okay, so a friend, last chance, see if there's anyone here. Someone who's nice, someone who's trustworthy, right? Everybody knows what trustworthy means?
Yeah.
That means like, if your mom makes something like, what's like your favorite dessert in the whole wide world? What is it?
I'd say mango ice cream.
Mango ice cream. Anybody else? What's your favorite?
Cookies.
Cookies. Okay, anybody else? One more. Yeah, way in the back. Apple crumble. Okay. So let's say your mom made cookies, apple crumble, and mango ice cream. Okay? And they're all in the refrigerator. Okay, a friend is somebody you can tell. My mom made apple crumble, mango ice cream, and cookies. And you know they weren't trying to sneak in the house and eat it all when you're gone. Okay, that's a friend, right? I mean, if somebody did that, would they be your friend? They wouldn't be my friend anymore. Right, so that's what trustworthy means. You know, you can trust them with like, you know, things about yourself maybe that you want to share, or, you know, questions you might have, or just like that. So that's trustworthy. Okay, trustworthy, someone that you know closely, helps when I'm in need, someone I can have fun with, someone we want to be with, and who makes us feel worthy. So this is a great list, and this is all like your own personal experience. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, and Prabhu tells us that actually Krishna, why don't you put at the top, Krishna is the best, all those things, just right at the top. Krishna is the best of all those. You want to do it on the cover?
Krishna is, and then.
There comes another. Krishna is, okay, that would work too. Okay, great. But not only is, he's the best. Krishna is the best, right? Okay, so Krishna is the best at being nice. Krishna is the best at being trustworthy. Krishna is the best at knowing us closely. Great. Now, I just took a big kind of theoretical jump there. Like you all said what your friends are like here, and I kind of imposed, right? Imposed, like just kind of pushed on top. Krishna's, so you guys know any stories about Krishna or any histories of when Krishna was here that shows this is that he actually is the best of all these things? Yes. Please, yeah. I think it's off, maybe.
It's off.
Like when Krishna saves everyone and lifts the government up.
Okay, so which one of those qualities do you think that shows Krishna has? Could be more than one, too.
Helps in need.
Helps us when we're in need, yeah. Like next time you go outside and like the whole world is flooding and Indra's trying to hit us all with lightning bolts or anything less than that. Krishna really demonstrated that. That's a good example. What's another quality here you can think of, a story about Krishna that shows this?
Maybe when Sudama came to his house.
Okay, and what happened?
So when he came, Krishna came out of the palace and he greeted Sudama, and
Okay,
he put Sudama on his throne and
wow.
started washing his feet.
Wow, do you have a throne?
Yeah.
No. Do you have a chair?
Yeah.
Do you share your chair with your friends?
Well, if they wanted.
If they came over, you probably would, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but like if
Okay.
they need.
So what does that show? That Krishna, he kind of honored Sudama, right? He treated him really special. So is there one of those qualities there you think that matches with?
Know closely.
Which one, sorry?
Know closely.
Know closely?
Or maybe, yeah, maybe.
Well, he definitely knew him closely, right? Because they were friends when they were in
Yeah,
school.
made him feel worthy too.
Feel worthy. I was thinking that one. What do you think? I think he's
I was so.
suggesting, yeah, feel worthy. I mean, imagine, you know, Sudama was kind of like a simple Brahmin, a priest. He was very poor. Krishna's big king by that time. And he goes there and he puts him on the throne, as you said. Okay, great. So far Krishna's doing pretty good, isn't he? Okay. Any other stories you can think of about Krishna? Yeah. Can I get a glass? Please.
One story where Krishna, well, multiple actually, most of them, where he saved a bunch of people because the a demon attack them. I don't know why a demon keeps attacking them, but every single time he saves them.
Okay, so what is that? So in other words, he's nice to the demons? No. No.
He hates them with a very big passion.
Okay, so what would you say, as Krishna's friends, you're talking about Krishna's friends, which of those qualities does that demonstrate?
I think that could be people would want to be with him because then
Okay.
they wouldn't get eaten by a demon.
Well, although I think it was want to be with us, like a friend wants to be with me.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it could work both ways. What about trustworthy?
Yeah, I think that would be too.
Okay, so maybe we can put both of those. Trustworthy?
Sorry.
Yeah, this is the demon Leela, right? You said all those demons, so many demons. So the cowherd boys and the residents of Vrindavan, they learn to trust Krishna, right? Just like we try to trust a friend. Okay, let's maybe do one more. Somebody else think of a story about Krishna? Maybe show us one. You have a story in mind? No? Okay. Looked like maybe you were thinking about something. Okay, anybody else have a story you want to share? You have one? No? We got 4 so far, that's pretty good. Okay, well, let's look at this. So you all made a really nice list of what friends mean to you. A friend is someone who's nice, trustworthy, we know them closely, they help us when we're in need, somebody we have fun with. How about fun? I gotta stop and ask that one. Are there any stories of Krishna having fun with his friends? Let's see, who hasn't raised their hand yet? Anybody wait? Let's see, you spoke before, but not this time around, I don't think, did you? Okay, go ahead. What's the story of Krishna having fun with his family and friends and everything else?
Pretty much every day when he was in Vrindavan, from like dusk to dawn, like the whole day, he just used to play with his friends.
Yeah, all the cowherd boys and the cows and, okay, these guys, go ahead, you want to add to that? Okay, good. So having fun with, that's just, he's playing every day, isn't he?
So another one is like when Krishna and his friends, but they used to bring pots for
Were they playing?
oh yeah, water.
Oh, yeah, with the monkeys, right? Okay, I forgot about the monkeys, didn't we? Okay, so he's good to play fun with the cowherd boys and the monkeys. Did you have a different example?
Yeah, I don't know which category this goes into,
Okay.
but they used to steal food for Krishna. So like
Okay.
in the Damodar Leela, when he was tied up to the what do you call it?
The grinding mortar?
To the grinding mortar. It seems his friends used to go to their mother's houses and steal food and bring it to him.
Yeah, so that's one we don't necessarily want to copy, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. We'll talk about that one another time. Delete the tape. So, okay, so here's maybe we'll just kind of wrap it up with this. So we all know that it's great to have friends, right? Everybody likes to have friends, right? At least 1 or 2 friends are important because they're nice to us, they're trustworthy, we know them closely, they help us when we're in need, we have fun with them, we want to be with us, we want to be with them and they want to be with us. And I think this is a really, really important one. The friend makes us feel worthy and valued. Sometimes as kids and adults too, not everybody makes us feel worthy or valued. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I would definitely raise my hand. There's sometimes that the world or your friends and your teacher doesn't necessarily make you feel worthy. We probably all experience that once in a while. But that's one of those wonderful things about Krishna. He's so big. I mean, he's so important. You think about it, sometimes you go out in the summer night, you see like the moon's up or you see the stars and you think, wow. So he created all of that, but still he cares about us. And like with Sudama Brahman was a pretty insignificant person, wasn't he, really? I mean, he was a pretty poor guy. I mean, imagine a king. Okay, like I live in Washington, D.C., right? You've heard, right? Who lives in the White House?
Joe Biden.
Okay, yeah, right now it's Biden. So the United States president, right, pretty big guy. They got a big fence around there, there's a lot of guards, all that kind of stuff. So if you walked up and rang the doorbell and he said, what's your name, Prabhu? Swagger, what's your name?
Suarez.
Suarez?
What's the T?
Suarez?
Suarez.
S-W?
A-R-I-T-H.
Suarez. So Suarez, if you went up and rang the door in the White House and he said, hey, Suarez, nice to see you, come on in for lunch. That'd be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? And he's just the president. I mean, how many countries are there in the world? Anybody know from your geography class? You're pointing to 104? Okay, well,
194.
194. Do you know that or you're just really good at guessing? That's pretty close, huh? And the way the world is, probably since you studied that number, there's a new one, right? Because they tend to like divide these things. Okay, so let's say there's 194. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I know there's more than 150. So that's a lot of countries. So if you go and there's one, like the president of the United States, he's just one president out of 190. And if he's like such a big guy, what to speak of the person that made all the countries, that made the planet on which other countries are on, that made the universe in which the planet is on, that made the material world in which the universe, in which the planet, in which the country is on. And he's like, wow, can you come and play with me? And don't worry, if any demons attack us, I got it covered, right? And then he says, okay, whoever wins gets to carry the opposing, the loser has to carry you on their back. And then he loses once in a while, just so you don't feel bad. I mean, that's a pretty cool friend. What do you think? That's a pretty cool friend. So Prabhupada is helping us understand that Krishna's that one very, 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 very special friend. And he has this really wonderful quality, maybe in one sense, definitely one of the most important. He can be your best friend and be totally your best friend and be your best friend at the same time and your best friend at the same time and all of our best friend at the same time, because he's like so unlimitedly full of these wonderful qualities. So very, very special person. And that's why Prabhupada and our all our spiritual teachers say, hey, make that the point of your life. Try to get to know Krishna. So thank you all for sharing. You have so much knowledge and realization. And I can tell from the back that somebody really wants kirtan to start, because he just hasn't put those instruments down. So I think we should probably start chanting. Any questions anybody might have? I bet you ask a lot of questions in school. Do you, or do you just sit there and think, I don't know if I believe everything you're telling me?
Well,
Yeah, I thought so. You have a question for us or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now be careful, it's being recorded.
So if Krishna created everything, right, and he's the best friend for everybody,
He's the source of everything. Sometimes its creation's a little different, but more or less, yeah.
mhm. Why do people, I guess, not believe in him?
Whoa, what a question.
Why do people think he's fake? Why do people, think that he's not real? I mean, how? How did he make everything?
What do you say when somebody asks you that question? When you go to school and somebody says, wow, I had so much fun on the weekend, I went this and this and this and this and this, and they say, what'd you do? Well, I did this and this, and I went to temple. And they go, temple? What the heck you go to temple for? Is that why you missed the afternoon baseball game? You went to your temple again? Why do you do that? Okay, what do you say?
I would say, well, I'm Hindu and I go to the temple because that's my religion, that's where I go to worship my own God. You go to church to worship your own God, so think of a temple just like church.
Well, that's great because Billy, because his family goes to church, but my family doesn't go to church. Why do you waste your time going to church? They may not be so blunt, but they might. What would you say?
I'd say, well, I go,
I mean, in science class, didn't you pay attention last week? We learned that everything came from a really tiny spot. And one day it just blew up. The next thing you knew, there was Walmart.
and you think I'm crazy.
That's a good answer. I have a request. How about we ask our scientist friend? Yeah, I know. Last night you told us you're a scientist, yeah?
I used to think like that.
I thought you said you were a scientist. What's your profession?
I'm a software engineer.
Software engineer. It's a little different from a scientist.
Scientists can't talk correctly.
Okay, so how about you give us from the scientific mindset? You have a scientific mindset, so share with some of our young people, and we'll go to kick
I
off.
mean, what is the question?
The question is, why in this world of so many scientific explanations, these kids, they go to school and, they present to them that, look, we're not going to talk about religion, that's personal, but we're just going to explain to you that science explains everything and there's no real need for God. If you want to believe in God, that's fine, but you don't need to, right? Isn't that what they kind of say? Because science explains everything without any kind of God. So what do you say to that?
Science really doesn't explain a lot of things. When I was growing up, they were talking about black holes, and in the entire universe.
Black hole, you guys heard of black holes? It's like when your mom makes donuts. It's like the inside, but a little bigger. Okay.
And in the entire universe, they had not discovered one black hole, and they were thinking there will be one or two black holes. But now we know there are so many black holes all over the place, and then they changed their thought process, thinking black holes are only in the center of a galaxy. Now, you find that they're not only in the center of the galaxy, they're everywhere. They're saying there's one next to our sun also, our own star. So that is how much it is. And now they've created an experiment by which they created their own black hole in the galaxy. So that is one thing. The other thing is.
So in other words, they keep changing their ideas? Is that what you're saying?
It's not absolute. Whatever,
Okay.
though scientists want to make us believe, and what they teach us in school, they want to make us believe everything is absolute. It's not really absolute.
Okay, so there's one, thank you, that's good. So he's pointing out that I can remember when I was like the age of some of you guys and went to school and I liked science. And I also noticed that over time, sometimes they kind of tell like the theory that like you learned when you were in 5th grade. By the time you're in 10th grade, they go, nah, we don't really believe that anymore. And you think like, well, then why did I have to study that big fat book? And now you're telling me it wasn't true. So that's one thing. And I mean, there's a lot, this is actually a very deep question. So a very deep question. But one thing I like to do is I ask when I travel, I thought you were scientists, but I appreciate the scientific mentality. I have some friends, I have a friend in New Vrindavan, a lady devotee, Vaishnavi friend, who's a professor of physics. And I asked her sometimes, why do you believe in God? Because we hear, like you raised this question, science has explained everything, there's no need for God. And I'm trying to think, she had a few different answers. But one of the things that she said was because the scientific explanations of things cannot comprehend how complicated the creation is. And it's so fine-tuned. The chances of it actually happening by chance, as they explain, is just too precise. It's just too precise. This is like a professor of physics saying that, it's kind of like, I'll end with this. There was a story, there used to be a devotee radio program that came out of England. They like did little dramas and stuff. Remember they had one, I don't know if these are still around, they were hilarious. There was one, they were making a joke and they said, do you need a new house? And if you do, we promise you the best price in town. We are the Big Bang Construction Company. And all we charge you is you buy the lot and we'll tell you what to bring. You gotta bring some pipes, you gotta bring some wood, you can bring some electrical wires and some lamps, some chandeliers and some paint, and a little bit of carpeting, and we'll put it all in the middle of the lot, and we'll get out some dynamite, we'll blow it up, the Big Bang. And we promise you the best house. And if it doesn't work the first time, we'll try it again. And we'll keep doing it until you get your best house. So to get the best deal in town, call Big Bang Construction Company. And you think, yeah, like that's just logically out of an explosion. It just. And I think it was even Darwin, who's of course the main person behind the theory of modern materialistic evolution, who, when they asked him, well, what about the feather of peacock, which is significant for us as followers of Krishna, right? We've all seen peacock feathers, right? So they asked him, well, how can evolution explain peacock feathers? And I don't remember his exact quote. It was like, we struggle with that. How is it possible? What evolutionary force? Because the basic idea is that at every step of evolution and mutation, there's got to be a statistical advantage for that mutation, which then replicates itself in the next generation. So what mutation to the peacock feather could possibly be mandated by the laws of the survival of the fittest and all that? It's like too much. It's too much. So anyway, that's a little more technical than we need to get. But thank you all for your participation. And maybe somebody can take a picture of that. And next time when you have your kids come over, you can remind them of this little conclusion that they all came to. I appreciate you. I learned a lot today from all you guys. Much appreciated about Krishna being the best, because he's nice, he's trustworthy, we can know him closely. He helps us when we're in need. We can have fun with him. He wants to be with us. That's pretty cool that he wants to be with us. And what's the last one there? Last one was a good one. He makes us feel worthy. Okay? Yes. Oh, another question. We have time for one more question. We have to ask the teacher. We have time for one more question. Try to make it like a little less complicated than that one. Maybe like, where does God come from, or something like real easy like that one.
You're in for a big ride.
Oh, here we go. I got 2 glasses of water, so I should be okay.
If time is infinite, if so, was there?
If what so?
If time was infinite, what was before Krishna?
If time is infinite, what was before Krishna? I don't get the connection.
If time is infinite, how do we know how long it's been since time was started?
Well, one thing is explained that actually time is only a factor in the material world. Time, like, I think Prabhupada used the expression, time is conspicuous in the spiritual world by its absence. I think that's kind of one of those things we're going to have to realize to really understand, but we can at least understand to the point of it doesn't exist there. So there's no past and present or future. There's present, but there's no past and future like this here. But I would turn the question around a little bit, because sometimes people say, well, if God's the original, so who created God? And I think a simple response to that, and you're a philosophically minded guy, there's 2 ideas basically. There's ever-existing eternal matter, or there's ever-existing eternal consciousness, right? Both schools have some faith. The materialists say that there's some type of matter, whether it's this infinite spot that somehow blew up into everything, or some other version that there is an eternal element. I mean, there's some voidist philosophies that say that's a whole other thing, but generally, the general kind of trains of thought, there's an eternal material elements, or there's eternal consciousness. So consciousness comes from matter, or matter comes from consciousness. Those are the 2 alternatives. And just even us little people here, are we in Naperville? Are we in bowling, whatever it is again? Is this golfing green or baseball alley, or where are we tonight? Aurora, like Aurora Borealis, right? Okay, so we graduated from bowling to just looking at the stars. That's good. We're moving the right way. Okay, so the idea, Prabhu, Yeah, so then the idea, so which of those makes more sense? You know, which of those makes more sense? That's really the question.
I think railway makes more sense because I understand that there is ever-existing material and ever-existing consciousness. So that kind of clears that up.
Okay, good, I'm glad. So you won the best question of the night, so you get all of the mango ice cream, cookies, and what else did we say? Apple crisp, yeah, whatever's in the house, it's yours.
I don't eat the apples, I just eat the crispy part.
Okay, good, so we'll divide it up. I'll take the apples, you take the crisp. Okay, thank you all, you did really well. This is wonderful. So should we sing a little bit now? Okay, great. Okay, good. I think you turned off the AC when we came in because it was cool, maybe, but it's getting a little warm now. It may be just because his questions were so tough. Might just be me, I don't know. Okay. Hare Divine Grace Safety Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajacharya Askara Tharsada Shri Sriman's Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Hari Astakar Ki Jai. Prensi Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Virana Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktananda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Tumun Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Hari Ram Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Shama Sangha Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gautami Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vaishnav Sangha Ki Jai. ISKCON Neighborhood Yatra Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the Samhita. All glories to the Samhita. All glories to the Samhita. All glories, Shri Shri Guru. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Lakshmine Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Lakshmine Bhagavan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. I was worried there. I thought maybe nobody under 15 knew how to dance in this community. It was wonderful. So the kid's gonna stay, they can handle another talk, or they're gonna go play somewhere, what's it? What do you want to do?
Say thank you.
Whatever's best for them.
Say thank you.
You gonna take off?
Yes.
Can we go with you? Okay, well, thanks for all your wonderful answers to those questions. You guys really were on top of it.
So on behalf of the kids, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time and spending with them.
My pleasure. It was my
Everyone say
pleasure.
thank you.
Okay, Harbo. I'll try to come back before you all graduate from college.
Oh yeah, and that was the best turn of my life.
That was the best time of your life? How many years? How old are you? In the last 10 years, that's the best kirtan. Wow, that says a lot. Thank you. That'll inspire me for the next 10 years just to hear you say that. Wonderful. Well, we were all inspired by seeing you dance, so thank you. So, a suggestion was maybe last time we talked about building community with Prabhupada in the center. So it was suggested maybe we should continue that theme, but a little different. Maybe talk about what are some of the ways we can build community. What are some of the ways we can understand and appreciate and associate nicely with devotees. So some of this is maybe a little bit of review for some of you. I'm gonna go to some quotes that we use in the of course, I did I think I did a condensed version of the communications course here a few years ago. So some of these quotes you may recognize, and even if you weren't there for that seminar, these are very important quotes about the importance of association with devotees. And then I thought, keeping with this theme of some principles for devotee care, I gave it a little thought and I came up with what I would suggest are some, based on Shastra, of course, some essential principles for building community based on devotee relationships. The first principle is to turn off your cell phones before you use the list of do's and do nots, right? That's on the top of the do nots. Although we all make that mistake sometimes. It's worse in India, right? You've been in a class in India where it goes off. It's like they have at least to our ears that are used to American sounds on phones. They're like the little jingles that they play on their phones. It's like, I don't even want to try to imitate them because I'll be singing in my mind for the next 3 years. But our bells and whistles are a little less distracting, at least for the way my ears are trained. So, Omigana Tamyana Shajanan Anjana Shalakaya Chaksho Omni Tamya Tasmai Shri Gurvema Shri Chitan Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadami Didati Swasanatikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasana Gaurvantavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Prabhu Ki Jai. So, I was thinking it's nice. I mean, this is a house. It's a special house, but it's, quote, just a house. Just wait till we get the new temple built, huh? what kind of kirtans and dancing? And, here you can only go like 15 feet and you run into the wall, right? Why do we get it 40 feet long and 30 feet wide, whatever the dimensions on the temple will be, special opportunity then. So, and how do we do that when we know we can only do that through community, right? None of us here. Once in a while we know and may God bless them. Sometimes a pious Hindu gentleman will come forward and build a whole temple out of his own pocket, which is glorious. And it's not a rule, but I've seen the tendency is it remains his temple. And people visit his temple, but it's not their temple. And they struggle to have it be their temple or our temple. So we really want to build our temple with, of course, the understanding that it's actually Krishna's temple. And of course, in that sense, it means it's everybody's temple because Krishna is the Lord of everybody. We don't ever want to stop and think, well, this is can't wait till we open the Naperville temple and maybe we'll let those people from bowling, whatever it is. We're not sure. We'll check your card at the gate, make you an official Naperville visitor. We'll give you a green card to Naperville. But not citizenship. That's too hard. So that's not the idea at all. We want an ever-expanding community. And unlike the pious gentleman that maybe gives his whole, sacrifices all his wealth, and that's glorious, at the same time, the difficult transition is that it becomes people have a sense of community, really, sense of community. This is my temple. I was very moved when we had that event about a month ago. And is it Anuja who was speaking, who was hosting, right? And at one point she was speaking to a few people, and they could say she got kind of emotional when she was talking. She was kind of pointing to the temple that she had to come, saying, "This is my temple." And as she travels around the world, she's a lady of means. She's interacts with so many people, but she's really feeling in her heart, this is my temple. So that's part of what community means. Coming together in a community, and of course, like we said last night, communicating to each other, having communal needs, community goals. And just like here, all the kids coming together and all the adults dancing, I'm a bit an outsider. I don't know everybody, but I know there were definitely some men there that weren't dancing with their sons. There were some men who were dancing with their sons and their daughters, but it didn't matter. It was like, pick up a kid, spin around, have fun together, So it wasn't a sense of, there's like a dividing line. It's community, right? So, that's such an important thing. And in the transcendental sense, this is what's really motivating every living entity from the top of the universe down to the bottom. And so we're all looking for that. Just like they said, where's the board? Is that board still there? What was the last? It's not too far away. I don't want to slow the whole thing down.
One who makes
Something
us
about-
feel valued.
One that makes us feel valued. And that was really profound. So we all want to be part of something that makes us feel valued. Thanks, Prabhu. And it's sad that in this age of Kali, sometimes we see that same principle that ideally leads us to higher and higher life, broader and broader definitions of community, more and more willingness to sacrifice for everyone. That same thing really becomes perverted into like sectarianism, religious strife, politics that goes beyond disagreements. How should the society be organized to really thinking they're evil and they think we're evil, and it just leads to so many problems. And I mean, in the world today, genocides and ethnic cleansing and horrible things that in the eyes of a spiritualist, it's almost, how is it possible? I mean, we're all connected to Krishna. We're all spirit souls. At the very least, we're all human beings. Like, hello, can't you see that? We're all human beings. And we have a shared history. But of course, this covering of illusion and wanting to be separate and being in control really takes over our hearts. So we as a community, we want to help create more and more spaces, more and more places where people can direct that desire for meaning, who makes us feel worthy, in a way that can actually satisfy us. You know, I was chanting outside the pond, call it the pond or the lake, whatever the lake, the pond. Yeah, and you know, the ducks are coming and the geese are coming and the frogs or you know, everybody's making the noises. And the birds are diving down. We're talking about these, some birds, loons or something like that. They dive to the bottom to eat down there. So, you know, everybody's looking for something. When I was young, there was a music group that had a hit song, We're All Looking for Someone. We're all looking for someone. And that really resonated with me. Of course, people had different ideas. I'm looking for a girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband or, you know, different varieties of that. Somebody has, or, you know, a really close friend and that's a motivation for all of us. And when people don't have sufficient knowledge, we look for it in so many different places. You know, the loons looking for happiness, maybe down at the bottom of this pond. You know, and I'm sitting there in a human life thinking that's really disgusting what you're looking for on the bottom of that pond. But you're a spirit soul just like me, and somehow or other you have a body that tells you on the bottom of that yucky pond, you're going to find happiness, right? So, you know, we know the human form of life, Tato, Brahma, Jignasha. Now it's time to inquire into the absolute truth. You know, why am I here? Where have I come from? And to stop and ask, I mean, is happiness at the bottom of that pond? And we drive by last night, someplace going to your home or maybe the program last night. We drove by some auto dealership, right? And, you know, they're selling cars, $20, $30, $50, $100,000. And I was seeing it's so strange, like they decorate it with balloons. A balloon costs like a penny. But, you know, somehow or other, like practically the second most expensive thing you ever buy, but they fill the parking lot with balloons. I said, this is so weird. How does it balloons attract people's attention to buy a car? But somehow it works, you know? I can remember, to just tell a little story, with me and one time we went to, we used to get all the, maybe you all get them now, maybe they're out of fashion, but we used to get these, once a week, get some kind of solicitation for a timeshare. You get those phone calls? Maybe we all block our calls, but you get some of those? So like we got call after call after call. Somebody thought, okay, we'll just go check it out. You know, but I told the lady on the phone, did I tell this story when I was here before? Oh, I'm bored everybody. Okay. I told the lady on the phone, I said, look, we'll come, but you need to know we're not going to buy anything that night because I don't make those kind of decisions. You know? But if it's okay, we can still come. Then we'll come. And she's like, oh yeah, because you know she's just got to sign up enough people if she gets her commission, right? Yeah, no problem, you come. Okay. So anyway, we scheduled this thing like 2 weeks later. So we showed up at the counter, and I'm not exaggerating. I told the guy at the counter, look, I just need you to know, we're not buying anything tonight. So if you want to go through the whole process, you know, it's okay. They said, no, it's fine. And I thought we're going to sit in there, a group like this, and they're going to show us some pictures and walk. But it doesn't work like that. It's you, and if you got your spouse with you, or your partner, or whatever, they're taking you around one-on-one, or one-on-two. And you go to this room, and they give you this spiel, and then you go to this and this, and they tell you all the different reasons you should get it. And I told the guy in the very beginning, I said, you need to know. I said, we're not going to buy anything tonight. And he was the salesman, so this was like 30 minutes of his time, and he's got a certain number of appointment sets. He was like, well, why are you here? You know, he was like not very happy. But anyway, he was stuck with us. He got the bad straw because he got us that night. So they took us to this whole thing. And then at the end, they took us into this room full of balloons. That's why I made this connection. I was thinking about the car dealer, full of balloons, right? Big, high. And not only balloons, flashing lights. And not only flashing lights, but you know, they're appealing to a certain generation. So they're playing Beatles music, you know, like on a goes around the same and loud. It was like you in some kind of rock concert or something. And this is the room where they sell you everything. And the whole thing is, you know, whatever it's what I don't remember even numbers, whatever it's $20,000 to get a week for the next so many years. But tonight, we're going to throw in this. If you sign tonight. And you're like, well, I'm not sure, but if you sign tonight, right? And then you're like, well, maybe. Okay, tell you what. If you sign tonight, it's $20,000 plus that. Plus we'll throw in a free beach ball or, you know, something you really need, right? And you're like, you know, the lights are going off and you look around and people are signing up left and right and got these big, That's how they work. So we're like, okay, Hare Krishna, 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 control my mind and whatever distance in mind, maybe wanders and this and that. I keep it under control, bring back under control of the self. So I told the guy, I said, we're not going to buy into that, but I'll think about it. There's actually some value here. It may be a good thing, but I need to think about it. And I said, but I want to talk to your boss. Because by this time I was thoroughly disgusted. And I just thought, okay, this is a waste of my time, but I'm going to do it. It's my civic duty. So I went back to the boss. So the boss is like not in a big fancy room with bells and whistles and Beatles music and lights flashing. He's in some little dingy office way in the back. And I walked in, and it's a true story. I said, are you in control here? You're in charge of the shift? He said, yeah. I said, how do you sleep at night? He said, aren't you embarrassed to work here? I said, do you realize what's going on out there? They are pressuring people like I don't remember exactly what I said, but this is the line of thought, making people like nervous and psychologically unstable to do something that they wouldn't do if they had time to think about it. Why don't you just present a nice enough product and let them go home and think about it, maybe buy it tomorrow? If it's such a good thing, aren't they going to get it tomorrow? What do you got to like twist people? And it was an intense psychological pressure. And he kind of gulped a few times, like you could tell he knew what I was saying was true, and he probably wasn't going to be there very much longer because he seemed to have a little conscience. And then, we put our names, so maybe we'll call you in a few days. And flash forward, I don't know if any of you ever listen to radio at all, but I turn on the news, this and that, and regularly, at least in Washington, D.C., there's ads. Smith, Smith, and Smith. We promise for the lowest price available in the market to get you out of your timeshare contract with no muss, no fuss, as quickly as possible. We have 99% guaranteed returns. We all know that many of us have purchased timeshares in the past, and when you really realize it, you're not going to go to whatever, Mexico every July, and you don't really want it. Seriously, it's a regular thing. I bet I hear an ad like that once a week. So it's not only that people bought it, maybe they couldn't afford it. Now they're going to pay $5,000, $10,000 to get out of it because it's such a bad thing. But all the bells and the whistles, and people get caught up. So we live in bell and whistle loca, not bowling green or whatever, We live in a world that is just crazy with bells and whistles. Like I spent some time with Mukunda and his wife today, and their son's name is?
Veera Krishna.
Veera Krishna. Okay, really nice, cute little kid. And they were telling me how, he's at the age when he's starting to see things. They think maybe he can see about 6 feet away, not further. He recognizes faces. So he's at the stage where like all those red and blue things that hang over you, you can reach up for them and grab them. So, when you're 3 months old, you grab for those things, and you get a little old and you're like, you go for balls like that. And then you go for like little pushy cars that are either pink or blue or purple or red. Kids, they do studies, right? Kids really respond to the bright colors. And then you add like another 25 years and you go for the Beatles and the balloons, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And life's really meant, and what Prabhupada's trying to wake us all up to, and our Guru Maharaj is, and the Parampara and Krishna is like, hey, take like they say, right, with kids these days, where you time out, right? Take time out. It's like, just take a time out, go in the corner, sit down and think about things. And of course, in a materialistic world, you don't want to have people take time and think about, just like the timeshare, whatever you do, don't think about it. Because if you think about it, you may realize that you don't want this thing, isn't it? Like, maybe some of us work in sales, and, sales people are necessary. But oftentimes, the ethics of the thing, not always, but sometimes gets kind of thrown out the window and becomes this thing. It's just high pressure and attracted with so many things that aren't real. And then added to that fact, just like in this room where people are buying and these timeshare things, everybody's looking around the room, and when you see other people are doing it, you think, well, must be okay because he's doing it. We met him on the way, and he was a nice guy, and so that adds to the pressure. So it's one that you try to kind of pull back a little bit and think through things a little bit. But if everybody's going the same direction, then you're all of a sudden the odd man out or the odd woman out. You're like, there's something wrong with you. The added element of social pressure as well as the whole kind of structural pressure that's there. And that's why we need community. That's okay. I ruffle my papers all the time. Oh, she's tearing it up here. Go ahead and rip it in a hurry. And then we'll move on. Okay, good. There it goes. Well done. That's why we need community. That's why we need community. Like these different qualities that they described as a friend. Of course, we were talking about in the context of Krishna, but we also need friends in this world. We can see Krishna, we see him in the deity form, and sometimes we really feel his presence in the deity form through the chanting. But Prabhupada also talks about when we become completely pure, we'll see Krishna face to face. We can talk with Krishna. There's so many examples from the Shastra, great souls that saw Krishna, heard Krishna. Narada Muni seen Paramahansa in his heart, and then he spoke to him. That whole beautiful story. So that's there, but at our stage, we may not have that degree of realization. Therefore, we need community to strengthen us, in part, to strengthen us in our determination to achieve Krishna, and in part to strengthen us in our determination to say no to all those things out there with all the bells and the whistles. That's a really, really important part of it. And we know it's not necessarily an easy thing. That Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the mind, which of course is the real obstacle. It's not the bells and the whistles. Bells and whistles and balloons and Beatles music are not evil. The problem is the way my mind responds to those things. If I hear Beatle music and I think, oh, George Harrison, he was a wonderful devotee of Krishna. And he bought the Bhaktivinoda Manor and, did so many things. Well, great, Or if we see a balloon and automatically we think, wow, just think, this balloon is rising up in the air. How is it Krishna keeps the planets floating in space? But that's not always the way we respond to things, right? Something else comes. We see a beautiful man and we see a beautiful woman and, if we think, oh, wow, just imagine how pretty Krishna is, how handsome Krishna is. Just imagine how beautiful all the devotees are in Vaikuntha and in Vrindavan. But we oftentimes don't think like that. We think, oh, this is pleasing for my eyes, like that. So that's the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna that, okay, you're confused, you're bewildered, you're suffering because you don't have the right vision. You don't know what to do. You're seeing everything in the sense of duality and I and mine. I heard a lecture the other day, Prabhupada again was talking about I and mine. So community is so essential for us to help lift us from these misconceptions. And I think it was a conversation in Hawaii. I think this is in a purport. I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen this in a while, but I think it's actually in a purport, definitely in a lecture. Prabhupada was asked, is it possible to become Krishna conscious on your own? And he said that to think like that is as a hallucination. I'll have to check that verse. Maybe I'll look that up later. It's a hallucination to think like that. Also, he said in reference to that, one devotee asked him, can you become pure if you don't have a service attitude? Prabhupada said, yes, but it'll take 300 lifetimes. It's like, well, is there a shortcut? Can I serve prashadam tonight and say cut off 10 or 12 lifetimes? So this is the idea, a couple ideas. Much more can be said about why community is important, why association with devotees is important. And it gives us strength. And one other story just comes to mind, I'll share. If you think in the Mahabharata, near the very end, and help me with the names, it was Yudhishthir's uncle, starts with an S, it's not Shava. It's not Shava. At one point, Karna had to fight Arjuna. No, Karna knew, okay, the time had come, he's going to fight Arjuna the next day. And he was convinced that he could defeat Arjuna because he defeated him once or twice in the past. And Arjuna had defeated him once, but he was confident he could defeat him. But he knew he didn't have a good chariot driver.
Shalya.
Shalva? Yudhishthir's uncle. Yeah, they're all their uncle, right? Who had more or less been tricked to fight on the other side. So he's fighting for Duryodhana. So, how did it work? So he convinced Salya, to drive his chariot, which is like asking the king to be a taxi driver, kind of. But he convinced him to do that with right words. You know, you're the only one here who was the equal of Krishna in driving the chariot. So he agreed to do that. So then Yudhishthir got word that, and then he knew this was a really powerful partnership here. So he was worried. So somewhere, like at night, they used to enter each other's camps. If I remember right, he actually went to see Salya, his uncle. And he said, okay, here you're going to drive the chariot. I know you have to do that because you committed to it, your Kshatriya vow to do whatever is necessary, but I have one request. Remember what his request was? You remember? He said, when you go into battle, you speak discouraging words.
Yeah.
He knew if you could just speak some discouraging words, then we have a better chance. So they ride out the battle the next day, and Arjuna is typical, it seems from Kshatriya lore, days of yore. Arjuna is saying, you know, you can't withstand the power of my arrows, and with my arms I'll crush you. You know, like you got to get psyched up. And this is a, fight to the death. So it's like you got to be enthused. It's like, like an athlete, like a swimming competition or football game. See those kind of, jump up. You can't walk in like, oh, it's time to go. You got to be right. You got to be there. So they would fire themselves up and psychologically. So they'd say, they'd start to drive out into the battlefield, and Karna, he starts saying, Arjuna, you don't stand a chance. I'm going to crush you. And then Shalya says, well, why are you speaking such words? You don't stand a chance against him. He's like, you're on my side. And he kept saying things like that. Like, you don't stand a chance, and you're not half, whatever. You're not half the man that Arjuna is. Trying to discourage him. And Karna was getting really upset with him. Why are you saying these things? And chastising him back and fighting with Arjuna. And finally, because he was such an expert warrior, Shalya just kind of stopped saying those things because he realized, he was a little bit appreciative and awe of how great a fighter he was. And then he just started driving the chariot. We know, in the end, Krishna's plan, Karna was defeated by Arjuna. But why mention this? Because even in something as important as the Mahabharata war, association and words of encouragement and friendship were so important, and when they were turned around, it was like Yudhishthir considered it almost like a what's the word? It's like enough to kill you. It was that powerful, could weaken him. Such a way could weaken him. So it's a lesson for us, and there's many other examples, but it's just a lesson for us about how important it is, again, community, association, people to inspire us, and for us to inspire others, okay? But we all know sometimes, the nature of the tongue. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the tongue is the most difficult to control of all the senses, and I don't think he was just talking about tasting. I think he was also talking, at least as a secondary point, about, you're hidden down there, sorry. He was also talking, the tongues can be uncontrolled in speech, right? Krishna says in Gita, there's austerities of speech. So that's also important for us. So to remember how much we need association to inspire us, and also remind us how our words, right? Like kids have that thing, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. It's not true. Words can hurt like crazy. They might hurt more than sticks and stones, because it's a subtle thing. So on the positive, to see that the need of good community and how to build community and inspire each other. And then on the negative side, to see how we need to be very careful that our words and our actions and our very presence is always, as much as possible, inspiring other people. And to catch ourselves, when we see ourselves saying something that's not helpful, to kind of stop in mid-sentence and say, never mind. So what do you think about so-and-so? I really think they're, how's the weather, Prabhu? to catch ourselves and to really, train ourselves to say things that are auspicious and uplifting. And, if we're in charge of something, sometimes we have to use our critical eye, but even that can be done in a proper way. So just keeping that as a preamble for the importance of community association devotees. Here's a couple of quotes from people who are important to us. This is a statement by Lord Krishna himself. He said to Arjuna, "My dear Partha," this is quoted in Nectar Devotion, chapter 12. "My dear Partha, one who claims to be my devotee is not so." That's like a heavy statement, isn't it? Krishna says, "You say you're my devotee, you're my devotee. Only a person who claims to be the devotee of my devotee is actually my devotee." That's Krishna's statement. And then we have Lord Chaitanya, another important authority for us. "I am not a Brahmana, I am not a Kshatriya, I am not a Vaishya or a Sudra, nor am I a Brahmachari, a householder, or a Vanaprastha, or a sannyasi." So he just took out the whole human society in that era, right? All the orders. I identify myself only as the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis." So that's quoted in the Madhya Lila 1380. And then another reference from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna says, "Mad bhakta pujayantika." It is better to render service to my devotee. And Prabhupada comments, "Thus, according to the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is better to be a servant of the servant of God." And he quotes that same verse we just read, 13:8, Madhya Lila. "One should not," Prabhupada continues, "try to serve Krishna directly. A pure Vaishnava serves a servant of Krishna and identifies himself as a servant of the servant of Krishna. That is pleasing to Krishna." A couple more. Now we go to Lord Shiva. So we got what's Krishna's opinion, what's Lord Chaitanya's opinion. Now just round it out, what's Lord Shiva's opinion. Lord Shiva told Goddess Durga, also quoted interestingly in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 523, "My dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of the demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is" what? Who can say? "Rendering a service to the devotees, to the Vaishnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu." And famous, right? "One who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to" what? To who? What's the word? To Prabhupada sons? To my Diksha Guru? To Prabhupada? To Vaishnavas? Hindus? Men? Women? Young people? Old people? Human beings? Others. Anybody want to give a definition of the word others?
Everyone else except.
Kind of like everybody, right?
Other than.
Everything. Right? So it's interesting, Lord Chaitanya, that word can very easily chant the holy name of the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya says, and we know chanting the name of the Lord, that's the process for us in this age, the essential spiritual practice to chant. And he says you can do that very easily, if we give all respect to others. So what to speak of the Vaishnavas, what to speak of pure devotees, the Guru, Brahmacharya, seniors, etc. That. So others. So again, in the community, the importance of giving respect and caring for others. And then there's a couple more verses, but we'll go on from those. So I want to draw what I was just thinking this certainly could be expanded, but I kind of jotted down what I thought maybe were 6 principles of community building, since that was my assignment, and I talk about principles of community building. And I thought one is referenced here actually from Lord Chaitanya, which is I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. So principle 1, we want to build community, we need to recognize I'm the servant, as opposed to the master, right? Everyone's trying to think, I'm the master of this house, I'm the master of these kids, I'm the master of this husband or this wife, I'm the master of my business, I'm the master of so many things. And if we're thinking like that, of course, one can be a pious master. You know, it's not that one necessarily who is completely, doesn't have this consciousness, that there's not gradations. But at the same time, if we really, really want to build community, the spiritual community has to start with this understanding and the jnana dika, the theory and the practice that I'm the servant. And it's not easy because the materialistic mentality means we want to be the opposite of that. That's described, that's why we're here. You know, that's our core philosophy, that we have this misunderstanding. So principle one, I'm the servant. And I'm the servant to the servant to the servant to the servant to the servant. So you may think, well, I serve him, but who's his servants? Oh, okay, well then I'm their servants. Well, who's their servants? Well, okay, I'm their servants. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. So you keep going down, I'm their servant. And so many examples from Prabhupada like this. One time, maybe a couple times, at least once, somebody asked some lecture, you know, Prabhupada was saying that they asked, so, you know, you just described this pure devotee. So are you a pure devotee? Or, you know, are you, and Prabhupada said, no, I'm the, or no, are you a first class man? Prabhupada described a first class man. So are you first class? No, I'm 10th class. Another time they asked Prabhupada that, so, you know, something about, are you a servant of God? Prabhupada said, no, I'm the servant of the servant of God. Like, are you such a big deal? No, you're so humble. No, I'm the servant of the servant. So principle one, remember that I'm the servant. Principle two, to build community. Prabhupada said, if you love me, you will cooperate. Yeah. Cooperate. Sometimes it's said cooperate to keep this institution together in a more, maybe in a bigger sense, or maybe a more narrow sense, but cooperate together. So to make that, and that takes effort. That means sometimes somebody has a different idea than we like, than what we don't like, or somebody comes up with a plan that has me doing something I don't really like to do, or, you know, I've had experience sometimes things come up and you're like in a committee or something, and they're asking somebody to do something that you've done for like the last 30 years of your life, and people kind of tell you you're pretty good at, but nobody asks you to do it. They ask you to do something else. It's like, whew, like there. What is it? Step one, say the problem. Step two, think of solutions. Step three, explore consequences. And then the next one. Okay, stop. Use your signal. I don't know what my signal is, but name the feeling. I'm feeling really disturbed right now. Okay, calm down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 principles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see. 1, 2, Radha Krishna. 1, 2, 3, Jagannath, Subhadra. 4, we have principles. 6, Goswamis. 9, process devotional service. 10 offenses to the Lord. Okay, by that time maybe you're calm down. So whatever it is, that, okay, cooperate. I'm supposed to cooperate. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you get the lead in the play, and sometimes, you know, you're a monkey, right? It's like, you know, somebody comes up, she says, Mataji, we really think we got a perfect part for the play this year. Ram Leela, she's thinking, finally, they've recognized my affinity to Sita. I knew they were going to ask me. They go, well, Saparnika, like really, you just kind of have that presence. You know? And you go, okay, I'm the servant. I'm supposed to cooperate. I'm supposed to cooperate. So that's the second principle. Third one I thought of, and this one we'll borrow from Bhakta Steve and Covey, who I gave a Bhagavad Gita to. You may, you know, modern day, passed away a couple years ago. Nice man, Mormon man. And he one of the things that he taught, nice sutra, seek first to understand, right? Then to be understood. So a lot of times we want to insist, no, you need to understand my feelings, you need to understand what I want. And he says, flip that around. Seek first to understand others. So there's some conflict comes up and you just like, you need to know why I'm so upset. Okay, but first, I need to understand why you're upset. Or I need to understand what you need, or I need to understand what's the problem, or what's your desire, or what's making you uncomfortable. So seek first to understand, then be understood, which implies we need to all learn to become good listeners. We have to practice that. I think that's on the board over here too. Those of us that missed this when we were 6 years old, you can turn off front of the board there. Skills for learning, listen. Okay, so this refresher course. So if you're 6 plus 10 or 6 plus 20, or we won't ask, but 6 plus 30, 40, 50, whatever it is. So see, listen, right? Skills for learning, we have to listen first. And that's hard because partly, our false ego, we still have this drive to want to be in the center. It's just there. Because we think it's going to make us happy to be in the center. That's the thing that's kind of hard. It's not going to make us happy to be in the center. Lord Chaitanya, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is coming to teach us how to be happy, which is to be the servant to the servant to the servant to the servant to the servant. Which is like, every once in a while you kind of sit and think about what our philosophy says. You just think, wow, this is really amazing. God himself comes in the role of a devotee because he wants to experience what devotees experience. And he says that he just wants to be the servant of the servant. So it's not like, hey, everybody's telling me a servant, but I know like the people who really know, they're running the show. No, the people who really know, they want to be what our position is. In one sense, I'm simplifying it. But that's a really wonderful, profound, philosophy in many ways. So seek first to understand and be a listener. Any examples in our tradition of somebody who sat and listened for a while? Any good listeners in our tradition? Yes.
Lord Chaitanya.
Okay. Who do you listen to?
Sadhu.
For how long?
7 days.
Okay, so we're just going to experiment here tonight. I'm just going to speak for 6 days. Right? And then we're going to stop and we're going to let everybody practice. Right? Like 7 days. And what was he saying? What was he saying? All kinds of nice things? Completely speaking Mayavadi philosophy, which Lord Chaitanya came to defeat. But he's sitting and listening to this for 7 days. So just listening. And then finally Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, you haven't said anything. Don't you have any questions? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand the text? And he basically said, well, I understand the text. The text is not a problem. Just your explanations, that's my problem. So Sarvabhauma said, so what's your take on it, to put in modern context? And the Lord Chaitanya explained it. He realized, oh my gosh, I've been twisting these meanings for so long, and now that you're giving this a direct understanding. So what's another example of listening in our tradition? There's many. Yes?
Listening to Bhagavatam classes.
Okay, there's a practical one on an everyday basis, right? It's described, listen to Bhagavatam class. And there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that says we should listen to the Bhagavatam class. Good. What else? Any other stories? Let me see something. Let me see if anybody else. Anybody else? Yes.
And I guess listening to like Prabhupada chant.
Okay, sure. Listening to Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada's kirtans, Prabhupada chanting, japa when we chant. Okay, yes. Okay, that's a pretty important one, isn't it? Parikshit Maharaj and the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is just listening, right? And it's described, he attained perfection because of his listening. Uddhava? Okay, great. Tell us more about Uddhava. Who is Uddhava listening to? Krishna. Yeah, Krishna. And of course, the Bhagavatam is Vidura, Maitreya, like that. And I was also thinking, if you remember Srila Prabhupada, it's explained that his spiritual master, when they brought Prabhupada to be initiated, right? Like sometimes we repeat before, here's, so-and-so, and they want to be initiated. And you remember what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, what did he say?
He listens very well.
Yeah.
Because when everybody went to take darshan of him.
Yeah, in a previous visit, yeah. Sheshashaya Vishnu deity, yeah. And what happened?
Prabhupada stayed back and listened to Prabhupada.
Yeah, I was thinking, what benefit will I get from going to this darshan better than I staying here? So then some time later, it was at least a few months later, but they brought in to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and the disciples were a little surprised that Prabhupada, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada said, I have marked him, he listens nicely. Yes, I will accept it. So that's principle 3. So 4, I put Priti Lakshana, the 6 exchanges for building community. That's got to be there, of course. And I just noted on that. Okay, so what are the 6 real quick? Do you know some of those, a couple of those? Okay, fair enough. You're surrounded by people 10 years older than you. I didn't want to ask them because they might be really embarrassed. But if I ask you because you're a kid and you don't know, it's okay. See, but if I ask like your brother, so now he's in trouble. You know one or two of those? The loving exchanges. There's 6. They kind of opposites too. Do you know any of those? Okay. Who can help these 2 young men? Okay. Steph, you want to? You said Sanskrit. What's the Sanskrit?
Dadati Pratigrahnati Bhuya Chitve.
Okay, don't worry. Your students aren't here, it's okay. You've been struggling a little bit, it's all right.
Giving gifts and accepting gifts.
Yes, okay.
Giving prasadam and accepting prasadam.
Yes.
And revealing one's heart and listening to one's.
Yeah, some say revealing in my heart, absolutely. Yeah, so those are like the 6 loving exchanges. So that we concentrate on those. And we consciously do those. And these are things also that take practice. We should think like that, you know. I've known some devotees in my spiritual life that were just so kind-hearted. If you were half an hour late, without even asking, they would notice and they'd save you prasad. It's like people living in the temple or in a program and somebody comes. There's just people that naturally have that soft-heartedness. Others of us, maybe it takes a little more training, but we have to practice it. You know, this is really something we shouldn't think like, okay, one of these days when I chant my japa really well, then I'll be inspired to share gifts. But it should be part of my devotional service is to share gifts and to share prasada and to reveal my mind in confidence. And I was thinking, a nice story in relationship to that, one of the ones I like to think about a lot. In the early days, Garga Muni Prabhu, when devotees were just learning about paying obeisances, and he wasn't so inclined to pay obeisances, it was like really early. So I went to Prabhupada and he said, Swamiji, as they call him in those days, you know, the other devotees are bowing down, but I don't really feel like it. And Prabhupada told me, he said, that's all right. If you practice, the feeling will come, which is such an important element of our whole process of Krishna consciousness. We may think, well, I'm not enthusiastic, or I don't really want to save them prasad, right? Or I don't really want to serve with it. But if we do it as part of our penance, our purificatory practices, Prabhupada said the feeling will come, which is really nice. Because what it means is oftentimes it's easier to control the body than the mind. So, you know, it's time to pay obeisances, and, you know, you can make your body pay obeisances, your mind can be a million places, right? But it's not so hard to get your body to do it. And you may feel like, okay, you're trying to serve somebody else, and in your heart, you may be thinking, I have such a hard time getting along with this person. But, you know, if you serve them with your body, then gradually you kind of drag the mind along. So that was 4. So 5 is a little mantra, 2 more to go. 5 is a little mantra we teach in the communications discipline, which is understand other people's needs, interests, and concerns. And I'll give a little example, and not that I did such a good job tonight, but I did not expect to see 20 little Vaishnavas between 3 and 14 when I walked in the door. There was 15 of them. And there was like their acharya, their teacher, and 1 or 2 moms and 1 or 2 dads and me. And none of the rest of you were here. And I don't know if that was a setup or what. But either way, you know, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm not going to start a class with these kids, you know, quoting 6 verses from Lord Chaitanya and Lord Shiva. It's over. So, I'm just thinking, okay, they're little kids. So what about Christian consciousness can relate to little kids? And I'm not a trained teacher. I don't have experience in Gurukul or Sunday school. I never taught a Sunday school class in my life. But I was just kind of thinking, okay, what's of interest to them? I thought, what is it about? And of course, there's so many stories. I'm not a very good storyteller. Krishna Lila, I know some, but I'm not like some people are really talented to tell Krishna stories and they're excited. They describe demons and the gopis, and it's not my forte. So I thought, okay, what's of interest to them? What are their needs, interests, and concerns? So I thought, okay, kids, especially we too as adults, but kids want friends, right? It's a big deal to children. They want kids to play with and something they can understand. So that's when, okay, just starting, okay, so what's it mean to be a friend? So they were all sitting here, hey kids, Krishna says, Prabhupada tells us Krishna's our best friend. Well, that's pretty interesting. So what does it mean to be a friend? So then we analyze what are friends like, and that's where this list came from. And then to try to help introduce this idea that Krishna's the best. I just give that as like a simple example of, it's a fairly easy thing for all of us to do. In the old days, I would have said, did you run out of tape? What's the problem? There's no tape anymore. Everything's okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll finish before the tape ends. That's okay. You should have brought an extra tape with you, though. So if we all try to think a little practice, actually, what are the needs of the other people? What are they interested in? What are they concerned about? So, for instance, if you meet a sannyasi, which we all do from time to time, to be, Marj, where have you been traveling lately? Or Maraj, what are you teaching from lately? Or what seminars? What books are you reading? Or like that. How's said that somebody has disciples. How's your disciples in another part of the world? That's what they're interested in, right? You wouldn't necessarily start with a conversation with a Swami, how's your family? Now, if you know them well, maybe he's got a mom, like a lot of sannyasi, their mom passed, some of them, their moms got initiated and, all that. So, but you wouldn't start with that because it may not be the right one. I was talking with someone in Chicago yesterday, Leela Manjari, Leela, yeah. But, like if somebody comes to the temple, some young guy walks in, and sometimes happens, it used to happen a lot, and he's hitchhiking around the country, and he quit work, and he quit school, and he gave up his girlfriend because he was miserable, and he's just looking for spiritual things. And you start talking about how, life's meant for renunciation. He's all ears. Wow. Then you've made the right step because the material world is a place of misery and you should cut off all those attachments. And we have an ashram for people, and renunciation is one of the principles of knowledge. And we get up early in the morning, we purify our hearts and, cold showers. And he's like, wow, I've been looking for this, right? And then you think, oh, that worked really well. And then some lady walks in, single mom with 4 kids. Wow, this is a place for you. Renunciation, give everything up, cold showers in the morning, and tapasya, and she's out the door. Like she's in that nice, beautiful Catholic church across the street in about a minute and a half, right? Maybe they got something for her. So Krishna consciousness is so wonderful, it's so vast that we have culture, philosophy, music, books, kind of for everyone's needs, interests, and concerns. So to practice that, to be thinking when we meet others, what's important for them, and building a relationship based on that, and finding something interesting. Like we had a talk today about mechanical engineering, and I was actually really interested. I walked by, he was working at his temporary desk today, and he had like a notebook like this, like bigger size, right? And I was thinking, wow, this is great. It's like a high-tech designer guy, works on computers all day long. I didn't even know the name of the programs that he's mastered in his work, but he's like writing on a piece of paper. So we talked about, how many people in the world still write on a piece of paper. And it was interesting. It was interesting to me. And I think it was a little interesting because he does those things, And when Mukunda came over, I'm just giving examples, simple examples, like Mukunda's like, well, does he sleep? Does your baby sleep through the night, right? I'm not going to talk to him about, wow, I read this really cool story about, Durvasa Muni and his 10,000 disciples, right? In the middle of the story, the baby's burping on him, and it's like, well, this is not like connecting with these guys, But see, I may want to talk about Durvasa Muni. Maybe I'm fired up by Durvasa. Maybe I'm fired up about renunciation. Or maybe I've got 4 kids, and that's what I think about when the young guy walks in with a backpack. He doesn't want to hear about your 4 kids. They may be like the best 4 little kids in the universe, Some young guy walks in, my 7-year-old knows 15 verses. Right? He's like, where's the Catholic Church? Because it doesn't connect, right? What did when Krishna's talking to Arjuna, right? There's a whole bunch of verses that we kind of read and go like, who cares about this? Kshatriya Dharma. I mean, honor is worse than death. And like, okay, we learned it, but it doesn't relate to me. Why is Krishna talking those things? Because Arjuna's in the middle of a battle. So he starts out where Arjuna is at, as they say in modern terms, and he brings it to bhakti, to pure devotional service. At the end, he's not talking about, at the end he says, pure devotional service, now go and fight for me. In the beginning, it's just as a kshatriya. He's trying to, approach him that way. So, 5th principle, understanding the needs, interests, and concerns of others. Great way to build community, just practice. Even if it doesn't seem interesting, you practice and then you learn a lot by being interested in other people. And also it helps us connect everything with Krishna. Because everything's ultimately connected with Krishna, which is wonderful. The last one, and we'll see if there's any questions. Making sure that Krishna's in the center. And of course, that's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, keeping Krishna in the center. Which again, for us, it's artificial for us because we are in a diseased condition of life. We just have to practice that. We have to practice like here. As I was appreciating you walk in, it's like, whoa, the Maha Mantra is right there. Somebody walks in, is this a Seventh-day Adventist house? No, I don't think so. I don't think they sing that prayer. Right? So, keeping Krishna in the center. We got these nice, how to play nicely, problem solving, how to calm down, skills for learning, empathy, and above them also picture Lord Chaitanya and Harinam. Krishna in the center. Now, at the same time, we have to be careful. We're dealing with kids. It's a whole other point. You can't take down all those pretty little signs and put Lord Chaitanya in the center, expect them just to understand, absorb things the way, 12 and 19?
18.
18-year-olds and the rest of you 24-year-olds here in the room too. That's also, different strokes for different folks. Even like the kids, I was noticing some of the boys, the men, grabbed them and it was kind of like a little roughhousing. A little rough. And I was thinking, yeah, I used to be able to do that, And the other kids, it's like, okay, arm in arm when we swing around in circles. And the little guys, it's just like lift them up a little bit and not too much because you don't want them to get, if it's scary, then they don't want it next time. So it's just enough. So we have to do that with ourselves and we have to do that to build community. Keeping Krishna in the center and understanding needs, interests, and concerns. So let me repeat these 6 and then if there's any questions and then I don't have a watch, so I'm not sure how we're doing time-wise, but I think it's about time. So 1, remember that I'm the servant. 6 principles. 2, remember Prabhupada's instruction, if you love me, cooperate together. That can be very difficult. Number 3, seek first to understand. When we're interacting with others, seek first to understand, which means be a good listener. That's a part of it. And then 4, the 6 exchanges, Priti Lakshana, between devotees. And then 5, the Maha Mantra of communications. What are the other person's needs, interests, and concerns? And then 6, keep Krishna always in the center. So those are some that I thought were relevant, and I'm sure there's others. But those are some things that will help us, how we can build community. And all the wonderful things we do, taking prasad together, it's right there, it's the 6 loving exchanges, and kirtan is there, all those things. So, any questions or comments? How are we doing on time? I have no idea what time it is.
8:37.
8:37, okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing up the principles. It's actually opening my eyes. As a devotee, the first thing we learn, not the first thing, but in due course of time, we learn that we are dasa, dasa, anudasa. But within the community, what happens, it's my observation and myself, it's not others, it's me. Yes, I'm dasa, dasa, anudasa, but I'm actually a doer.
Okay.
So it's me, that false ego doership is there anyway.
Oh, thinking I'm, okay, not that I do things, but thinking that I'm actually.
I'm dasa, dasa,
I'm the
anudasa, but
power.
I'm the doer. So how to get rid of that?
Brakite krimanini guna karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma.
But it's very subtle.
So this first is very subtle. So the
Very
first thing
subtle.
is.
It's not just me, maybe it's
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, of course, it's
So how
not
do we-
just you.
How do we identify? First of all, we are not aware of it. And how to.
Well, I think, that's a very good question. So in essence, how do we actually realize I'm not the doer, Krishna's the doer, Krishna's the controller, Krishna's the enjoyer, and that. And I think, and the first thing just comes theoretically, like in the Gita, Prabhupada says in the introduction, we should study the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says he's God, at least theoretically read it in that spirit. And I heard a lecture the other day, I'll have to go back and think about it. Prabhupada said the same thing in another context, at least theoretically accept this. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, Prabhupada said that a couple different ways. So in a similar way, at least theoretically accept I'm not the doer, Krishna's actually the doer. So that's the beginning. And part of the reason for that is because it opens the door for us to see Krishna's hand in things. If I think I'm the doer, I don't necessarily need help, isn't it? It's like they say, the good old American thing, lift yourself up by your bootstraps, which of course is like physically impossible to do. How do you your boots on the ground? How do you lift your shoestrings? It's like, okay, that theory doesn't hold much water, but it motivated people for a couple hundred years. But so, understanding that theoretically, the Krishna's actually the doer is the first step. And then second step, I think, is giving Krishna credit. When we do achieve something, to realize that actually Krishna's credit. I mean, I'm just thinking of, I was at Rana Swami a couple years ago now, because the last year and a half were just a wash. And I was asking him, one time I was with him, he's kind of preparing for class. I said, Raj, how do you prepare for class? Sometimes I see you take notes, sometimes I don't see you take notes. How do you prepare? He said, I pray to Prabhupada. That was his answer, I pray to Prabhupada. What should I say? What should I do? And I've had some situations recently where I, was trying to deal with some particular problem. And, sometimes you're quote successful, sometimes not. But people were just saying, Anuttama, you really handled that well. And I was thinking, I'm very glad to hear that. I needed that feedback to know to do the same thing in the future. But I was also remembering at that point that you said you did really well, I was thinking, Krishna, please, I don't know what to do here. I'm listening to people and thinking, how do I respond? This is a very complicated question. Krishna, please help me figure out how to respond to this. So part of it comes from theoretically accepting he's in charge, he's the controller. And then when we do things, giving him credit for it. And also understanding, in kind of simple terms, real simple terms, really. Okay, so let's say somebody just sucked the air out of let's say, we're all like big controllers, right? And in the next minute, somebody sucked all the air out of this room. How much power do we have? Or Prabhupada would say, we have such vision, we can't even see the back of our own eyelid. It's the closest thing to our eye. And so many different, examples like that. Sometimes we see very, very powerful people. Something happens. Who was it? A Leela Rita Prabhupada went to see, I think it was Dr. Radhakrishnan, who was a very, influential impersonalist philosopher, right? Was he one of the first or second presidents of India, I think?
Yeah.
Highly respected. I think he wrote commentary on Bhagavad Gita, but an absolute impersonalist. And Prabhupada went to see him. And at the end of his life, he was completely crippled and maybe even like semi-incoherent or something. And, I think Prabhupada made some comment about how he always said, we are the absolute, we are equal to God, but, just see how the time factor can. So those types of things. And I'll tell you one little story connected to this. Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, early on, Los Angeles, I think Prabhupada asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj to be like the temple commander, maybe the president, I can't remember, one of those big positions. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked him, he said, Prabhupada, how will I stay humble with so much authority? And Prabhupada told him like this. He said, so within the entire material universe, there's one planet called Earth. And within that one speck of a planet of Earth, there's many different countries, one of which is a relatively small place called the United States. And within the United States, there's hundreds of cities, one of which is Los Angeles. And within Los Angeles, there's many streets, hundreds of streets, one of which is, I guess was La Cienega at that time, maybe Wasiga, not sure. And on that one street, there's many houses. And within one of those houses, there's a very small Tamal Krishna. That was his answer. If you put things in perspective. So, we're thinking, this is my house, I've got 3 kids, or I'm the vice president of this, wow, they put me in charge of the pot washing department. This is big. I'm waiting for years for this, or whatever it is. So I think, again, a big part is keeping things in perspective and also being open to Krishna kicking us sometimes and showing us we're not so powerful. He does that sometimes, as devotees, we know he takes kind of special care. So sometimes, he kind of goes out of our way to put us in our place and humiliates us and takes away whatever we had, which is one reason some people don't want to worship Krishna. Like, well, I just worship Lord Shiva because I described, right? He's easier to please. Krishna takes everything away, that whole idea. Of course, we know ultimately Krishna gives us everything, plus, all the spiritual rewards. So it's a big part of us just being also open to that. And when those difficult times come, recognizing that actually Krishna's been there all along, and he's the one that gives the success and the failures. And trying to give him credit for that. And just the fact that you're asking about it, you're wanting to understand that better, Krishna will help you. He'll give you a lot of realizations on that. I think that's one of those things we realize more and more as time goes on. Sometimes just thinking, if, I don't know how my hand works, bringing your real scientist friends, now that we know who's the imposter in the room. I remember I studied a little bit of science and I was a little philosophically inclined. And I remember thinking, okay, so they call this a finger and then they cut it off and then they describe, okay, they give a name for the bones and then they give a name for the muscles and they have a name for how the bones interact with the muscles. And then the question is, well, why does the muscle act like that? So then, 50 years later, research, they decided it acts like that because of this. And then 20 years later, this, and 20 years later, that. In every single chapter, in my experience, you can tell me it's different now. Every single chapter got down to like, why does that happen? We don't know. We don't know why that really happens. But we hope you'll become a young scientist one of these days too. So you can go a few layers deep. But it always boils down to we don't really know. Always. The sun and this and that and gravity and the rays and waves and blah, blah, blah. But why? We don't really know. So, those kind of things. So who's in control here? At least we have to recognize something beyond us. right? I mean, you and I wear glasses. If you take these away from me, I'm half crippled. And you can say, okay, well, you go to Target and buy a new pair. Okay, what if there was no Target? You know, I'm pretty vulnerable. So there's just a few thoughts. Is that, hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on that. Yeah. Yeah, when you find yourself, you know, tripping down the stairs and you realize, whoa, if I had gone a little further, I might have smashed my head. And you realize, oh, okay, thank you, Krishna. You know, I'm not independent. And sometimes we've all experienced something really good happens and you know, actually, I didn't do that. You know, the boss comes up and gives you credit. You're like, geez, but, you know, the guy just called me yesterday and bought 100, whatever. I didn't do anything. And other times you think you're really prepared. It was your best effort and the best pitch, and, you know, whatever your work is, you know, you did your best effort, it did not work at all. And other times you didn't do hardly anything and some big success comes. So at the very least, it has to make us think I'm not really controlling things here.
Is that an anartha?
Is that an anartha?
Yeah.
Thinking that I'm the controller?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an unwanted thing that blocks us from knowing Krishna. But thinking that I can use my desires for Krishna and he will empower me if he chooses, that's pure devotional service. So I think the subtleties is thinking, do I get the credit or does he get the credit? And as long as we give him the credit, then it's pure devotional service, or coming close to that. But if I think it's me, so, you know, it takes practice. Okay. These are good questions. I can't just quote one verse and give you the answer to these things. Yes, Prabhu.
I'll try to frame the question. I may have difficulty doing it. And it may also sound worse than it is. So this is based on...
He's talking about my answer or your question? It's just going to sound worse than this.
This is based on a discussion, you know, like friendly discussion with another devotee. The conversation was around institutional loyalty versus bhakti to Krishna, right?
Institutional loyalty, possibly in opposition to institutional loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah. Versus means in opposition. Okay.
I mean, the context of the conversation was, you know, often as young organization when they're growing, when there's a lot of services and whatnot, there's ask for, okay, people come and sign up for service, do the service, it is bhakti, it is, you know, Krishna will bless you and whatnot. And what the conversation went to is like, people come and ask you to do services in the name of bhakti, but it was just because somebody had to do the service. It is not truly for benefit for me, right? You know, somebody would have reached out to somebody else versus me, somebody else. They're just reaching out because they need help. I hope I'm framing the question. Yeah. Okay. So how do you balance between, okay, is it truly beneficial for me, or is this person coming and asking me because it's beneficial for me, versus, oh, something has to be done, and in the name of bhakti, they want us to get it done.
So if I understand you correctly, if Krishna appeared outside your doorstep and said, what's your name again?
Mohan Leela.
Mohan Leela. If Krishna appeared and said, Mohan Leela, this is what I want you to do today, that's bhakti. Or maybe Prabhupada, or your initiating spiritual master. Otherwise, anybody else is subject to question. Right?
No, because, for example, like whenever there is service left, or, you know, there is a need for service and whatnot, you know, we send a code.
Well, you're saying the only way we really know that it's accepted by Krishna is if he personally appears in front of us. Then I know it's, otherwise it's suspect, isn't it? It's kind of what you're asking.
No, on the flip side, the question is, you know,
because then it becomes a question of, okay, I'm ready to do service. Please come forward and give me your suggestions. and I will measure your pedigree, how pure you are. So I'll decide which service I should do, which servant I should serve, so that I make sure I got the shortest road to Krishna. Yeah? As opposed to what did Lord Chaitanya say? Oh, let me see. Actually, Lord Chaitanya said, I'm the servant of that person who seems to be most directly connected to Krishna, and I'm going to put all others aside because when my calculations, I may not get as much benefit serving them as I might serving others. I think that's what he said, isn't it? Something like that? No. He said, I'm the servant to the servant to the servant to the servant. So it's a very good question, but it's interesting because I think it reflects, like, if you're working for a company, okay, and the boss asks you something to do, but let's say the executive vice president directly asks you to do something, and then a manager asks you to do something, it's real clear who you're going to serve the guy or the woman who has got the most powerful, the most influence, and who's most likely to get you benefit. You're going to calculate like that. Well, this is just a manager. Why should I serve the manager? I think the executive vice president noticed me and asked me to do something. Maybe if I please him or her, I will get A, B, C, and D. Whereas devotion to Krishna is completely different. It's, again, theoretically at least, right? And what based on the Acharyas and what Krishna said, is based on the understanding that God is all present. And the reason we're here is because we wanted to stop serving. We wanted to be in the center. And he's giving us a chance to see if we want to be the servant to the servant to the servant to the servant. And whatever we do, he notices. So if I serve the big devotee, or the medium devotee, or the little devotee, it's not a calculation. It's, am I in the mood of being the servant to the servant to the servant? So that it may be more pleasing to Krishna if, Bhakta so-and-so asks me if I can help them, than it is if, whatever the temple president asks for volunteers, I'm calculating, okay, there's no guru, there's no sannyas in the rooms, okay, temple president, yep, they're the next one. Okay, great, right? And then, you see, we don't want to calculate that. That's not as pleasing to Krishna. It's still pleasing to Krishna. Any service is pleasing to Krishna. But it's not as pleasing to Krishna. So we should try to develop that mentality that whenever there's a need, I was kind of trained with this mantra, he who sees the need does the deed. And you hear so many stories of devotees say, like, when Prabhupada was physically present, Prabhupada sometimes would visit temples, and the Sankirtan devotees would stay out in book distribution. Because it would think, okay, well, I can hear a lecture, but somebody's going to record it, I can hear later. But what am I going to learn in the lecture? I'm going to learn that I should serve Prabhupada. Not that that's always the best thing. We should always try to get the, Bapu, the spiritual master, whenever we can. But that was the mood, I'm going to learn how to be a servant. And sometimes, it's easy to get confused on that. Well, okay, I'm supposed to serve the guru or to sit at the lotus feet of the guru, but then what's the guru telling us to do? Like, okay, I'm supposed to, like I mentioned last time, those of you last time, okay, we're supposed to read Prabhupada's books. Well, what does Prabhupada say in the books? Someone says, what's the essential instruction? Chant Hare Krishna. So then, okay, so why aren't you chanting Hare Krishna? And we have to, like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, Guruji.
Yes, but no.
That's when you feel the authority is truly genuinely interested in you.
But see, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's why it's not like, again, you would, in the materialistic perspective, it's natural. You're going to calculate who's going to benefit me directly, who's going to benefit me more. But in our spiritual practice, we really understand, no, I'm supposed to be the servant to the servant to the servant. And Krishna's watching, and he sees everything. So, okay, I'm going to go serve there's a quote, more advanced devotee. I'm going to go serve them because I'm going to get more benefit. Okay, maybe I'm thinking that. And you're thinking, oh, this Mataji has a problem and I'm the only one who can help her. I'm the servant of the servant. Let me go do that. Which one of those is more pleasing to Krishna? The one who's calculating, the one who's just in their simple open-heartedness trying to help? That's the challenge. And of course, I'm not saying we shouldn't try to associate with and serve more advanced devotees. We definitely should. But we're hoping, we're striving to, and we're practicing to awaken that sense of I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. So if, I go to the back room and I'm just standing around doing nothing and everybody else is like running around and cleaning and cooking and this and that, I'm not going to help. But then Anuttama or Rompad Swami or Radha Swami or so-and-so walks in. Oh, how can I serve you? Well, what you really could do is serve Mataji there because she seems to need some help taking the trash out. See the difference in the mentality. And if we're calculating trying to serve the more advanced people, gradually they're going to penetrate with their instructions to teach us to serve the so-called lower people. Servant to the servant to the servant to the servant. Okay? Yeah. Did that make sense to everybody else? Is that a little clear? Okay, good. And one last thing on that. You don't know who's walking in the door. Who initiated you? Okay, you know the story of how we first came? He's some bearded guy in the back of the auditorium. The prophet said, go bring that boy up here. And they're like, what's the story with Lord Chaitanya? Was it Sanatana Goswami? Right?
Yes.
And he told his associate, there's a Vaishnava outside. He went back and says, no, there's a Muslim fakir. There's like some, mystic Muslim guy with a long beard. There's no Vaishnava out there. He said, no, bring him in. So externally, let's say at the temple, somebody walks in tomorrow, 3 kids, materialistic perspective, this, that. We don't know. That person could be, the temple president someplace in 3 years. They could be, they study Bhakti Shastri and this and that. They're this GBC member in 15 years. Right now he's, so-and-so walks in with his Mayavadi pedigree. We don't know. We don't know. And in the ultimate sense, we have no idea what anybody's relationship in the spiritual realm. We may think, oh, he's a sannyasi and this is just some old lady. Well, I don't want to, just as an example, in her spirituality, she could be a gopi, he could be a blade of grass. And of course, from the spiritual perspective, you can't discriminate. The blade of grass is pleasing Krishna 100%. The gopi is pleasing Krishna 100%. So it's just materialistic rules and formulations and measurements just don't matter here. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead came to taste the highest love in the form of devotee. It's everything's kind of reversed like that. So, yeah, just keep that in mind when people walk in the door. You have no idea who they are. And if we think like that, that's a way to build community. Everybody walks in the door, we're thinking, this is a devotee. They have an eternal relationship with Krishna. And we've all seen that. Sometimes people come and, this day they're like a new bhakta or a new member of the community. Next thing, phew, they're giving classes and doing this, they're doing that. I have friends that, and other people, a lot of friends, but, I have some friends that, because most of the people a little bit older than me, but definitely some people that, they just flew by me. You're like, well, you were bhakta so-and-so. What are you sitting up there for? So, bhakta so-and-so was the same person as today, just he hadn't manifested, hadn't awakened, hadn't gone through the purificatory process. So We have to watch those kind of calculations and just, I'm the servant. Now, somebody asks you to do something and there's a more senior person that, okay, so, little preferences given there, understandably so. But we just be careful we don't discriminate like that. That's a material trick. I serve this guru, but I serve this sannyasi, but no other sannyasis. I'll serve Prabhupada disciples, but, or like, Prabhu, when did you become a devotee? I became a devotee in 1993. What month? January. What day? 15th. I came on the 1st. I'm senior to you. You should do that service yourself. I've heard that in some mosques they actually sit. The eldest and then the next eldest and the next eldest. And it's nice respect. It's nice to respect people like that. I don't think it necessarily helps or see everyone equally as a devotee of Krishna. Okay, last question.
I was thinking from...
Or comment.
No, Mohanila Prabhu was speaking from the side of a person who is getting engaged in some service. I'm thinking of if we were to, for example, if we were to invite somebody to do some service, or we find someone to just join in, I feel that sometimes if the person who is coordinating or organizing or engaging, whatever it is, so if they don't keep in mind what will be nourishing for the other person, would that be a problem? Because if I start thinking that there's a task force, they're coming and these all things are there, okay, please just get going. If I don't even think of what is going to nourish the other person, isn't that a problem there?
Definitely, yeah. But yes, so that's the other side of it. But internally, one, we should try to associate with the people who nourish us. At the same time, we shouldn't discriminate. I'm willing to serve this one and not that one because I'm going to get more benefit. Because then actually we're going to get more benefit. This is some biblical thing like, one who serves the least amongst you is the highest. Jesus said something like that. But that's Lord Chaitanya, the servant. So that's from the position of my service others. Now, if I'm engaging others, exactly what you said, that's the idea of needs, interests, and concerns. I have to see what is particularly inspiring to them, as much as possible, what's going to facilitate their expertise, like that, Like he's playing drum, he's good at playing drum. So, okay, great, play drum again, it's nice service for Krishna. Maybe there's something else that needs to be done he's not so good at. Okay, if there's nobody else, we ask him, hey, don't just think you play drum, that's all you do. But we should try to engage people according to their propensities and what inspires them.
So the needs, concerns, and interests of the other person and not what just the service demands is also important. Like not all the time, but at least.
Yeah, it's described the spiritual master should try to understand the nature of the disciple and engage them appropriately. Some people the spiritual master may encourage to remain brahmachari. Some he may encourage to get married. Of course, it's said in scripture that's the one order the disciple can supposedly say no to. You have to marry. No, thank you. I don't want to do that. Maybe it probably works the other way too. So restate the last question.
So I was thinking more from a person who's engaging, they need to be keeping in mind not just the needs, interest, and concerns of the organization or the service that we are trying to coordinate, but it's of the other person's needs, interest, concerns.
Yes, yeah. What you want to try to put aside is my own needs, interests, and concerns. We want to, naturally there's the needs, interests, and concerns of the community or the mission, like that. But then I want as much as possible and engage people according to their propensity. Like these little kids. We wouldn't ask the little kids, okay, sit here and read Bhagavatam for 4 hours. It's torturous for them. It really would be. And and some people, like when the temple gets open and maybe there's more deities or there's more deity service, some people, it makes their heart beat stronger to do deity worship. And other people, you give them too much deity worship, you know, it's like being in a cage. I gotta go from this spot to this, and they can do it some, but you can't, can you do 5 artics tomorrow? Whoa, you know, if it really, really, really needs to be done, it's for Krishna, I'll do anything. But it's, you know, Prabhupada talked about the art of engaging people in service. So as much as possible. Now, as humble servants, we should do whatever's necessary. Okay, whatever's needed. And at the same time, you know, we have certain propensities. We have certain things. And in the beginning, a lot of times we don't really see what our particular propensities are, but the more we engage in service, we start realizing I'm really attracted to this and not so much to that. Like I used to make flower garlands in the Denver temple. Everybody would make flower garlands. And, you know, like some days, but I mean, I know a lot of devotees, maybe there's some here, they're like, in Chicago, some ladies came up the other day, they were like crying. Prabhu, they stopped offering garlands to the deities. It's been a year now. I was like, wow, she's really hurting. She loves that service for Krishna. So, gosh, we need to try to facilitate that. I mean, that's a nice advanced stage of Krishna consciousness. And other people, it's like, oh, God, Prabhu, I'm allergic to those carnations. Please don't let me do that. You know, they start crying for a different reason, you know. So, you know, they're both genuine tears, but it's a slightly different mood. So, you know, we have to balance that because, you know, sometimes you need to do something you don't particularly like to do, but there's nobody else to do it. So it just kind of balance is important. Yes, one more. Although you notice they're thinning out one at a time, so maybe this is the last one.
This is about the seek to understand than to be understood.
Mm.
It's very powerful, and I really liked it a lot when I first heard before. When I seek to understand, there are some areas or some relationships where the other person perpetually feels more misunderstood. Even though the mood from my side is seeking to understand, it's not going across.
Okay.
And I kind of like just put myself down and say, maybe I don't know how to understand.
You're trying to understand, but it's not working. It kind of backfires.
It backfires exactly opposite.
Yeah. Sometimes seeking to understand means I understand that I'm better to stay out of the way.
I wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, seeking to understand doesn't mean, I mean, you know, we all know there's modes of nature. You know, I stayed at you and Prabhu's home today. You were there, and you know, it was like, wow, dosa, it's just fantastic, you know. And then you go someplace else. It's like, would you like some Perella subji? Like, wow, this I was mentioning. Was it with Shankar Anand at the Chicago temple, right? Shankar Anand, is it? Sridhar. And I was sitting taking prasad with him, and I thought it was in Bengal again. It was like a big pile of rice, a big cup of dal, mix it all together. And so I asked him, and you know, meanwhile, because you know we were guests, I was there with Jai Krishna, and you know they're bringing us different stuff, you know, pizza and shrikant, and you know, and I was watching him eat, and he's in charge of the kitchen. So I was asking him, and he said, this is the only prashadam I really like. He said, when I go to home programs, I call ahead and ask people, will there be rice and dal? He told me that, you know, because otherwise they're going to make fancy subdies for everything. So different people in terms of our psychophysiological nature, maybe a little bit our awakening of our bhakti, we have different moods. And some people we naturally, you know, there's some people you get along with better and some people you don't get along with. But we should respect everybody. We should honor everybody. But it doesn't mean necessarily everybody's going to naturally be best friends. I mean, I work on a lot of committees with some people I just really hit it off with well. Other people I work with them, I serve with them because we respect each other. We have a shared purpose. But you know, it's sandpaper. You know, other people, you know, we've all experienced it. You walk in a room and you just meet somebody for the first time, you just kind of like, you feel connected to them. Astrological charts, modes of nature, whatever it is. But among devotees, we should always respect devotees and we should always try to work together. And once in a while, there are people that maybe it's just not such a close relationship, but we should respect each other enough that we're not offended by that. You know, it's not like, well, why don't you get along with me? You know, and you must think there's something wrong with me, I must think there's something wrong. No, we're just devotees and there's different modes of nature. You know, it's like you offer me Kerala Sabji and I go, thanks. You know, it's nothing personal, you know, it's just Kerala Sabji, you know, or boiled okra. Some people's like, wow, boiled okra, this is fantastic. You know, for me, it's like, whew, you know, this is tapa. Just different natures.
I think this topic is, I can ask more questions, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe we should quit. We can on the way back, we can talk about it, okay? But we just, to conclude, we should respect everybody, we should serve everybody, and we should understand that, you know, we're not this body, we're not these modes. Maybe in this lifetime, you know, whatever, somebody's from Chicago, somebody else from Detroit, they don't like each other, you know, or somebody's from Gujarat, somebody's from South India, somebody's from Bengal, somebody's from, you know, whatever. Pakistani Vaishnavas don't come out with Afghanistan, you know, and not that you can draw things with some national border, but there just may be different people, different natures, and some we just naturally kind of feel more comfortable with, and that's fine. But we don't want that to become barriers. We shouldn't be like, well, I get along with these people, but I don't like these. No, we should like every devotee. We should like every person. And at the same time, some people naturally are going to have a little more affinity towards, and that's okay. But we have to be very careful we don't fall into one of these materialistic cliques. You know, you just got out of high school, right?
Yeah.
Cliques. How strong are cliques in high school? You know that term clique, like the jocks hang out together and these people hang out together, little groups, right?
Oh, yeah, it's very common.
Common, right?
Yeah.
Is it nice?
No, not really.
No, it's not so nice. You know, it's like a hierarchy. It's like chickens, like a pecking order. You know? So we don't want that. We don't want that. Okay. Okay, thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai.